Welcome to the Midsters Podcast, your podcast for inspiration on being bold and saying yes and making the most out of your midlife.
For those of you who are listening today as opposed to watching on YouTube, and I'll put a little plug for watching on YouTube, you don't know that we have two very special guests. Those of you who are watching can see that those two very special guests are Marianne and my favorite females, our dogs, Phoebe and Skye.
I think it's fun that she suggested doing this. Of course, I know you love your dog. Everybody that knows Leslie Ann knows she loves Phoebe.
I also love Skye.
Yes, and Skye loves you, as you know.
Yes.
She's moving around a little bit. What made you think about having an episode with the dogs?
You know,
with our dogs.
At this point of life, I can't imagine going through my midlife adventure without a dog at my side. And I have to admit that I've kind of felt that way about every stage of life.
Yeah.
But especially now, having a dog is just a really special thing. So I thought it would be fun to talk about what dogs mean to us, especially in our midlife, and all the benefits that come from pet ownership. And to be fair, although I am very much a dog person, it also applies to some extent to cats as well.
Yeah, we had a cat in the home years and years ago, but dogs have always been in our home. When you first mentioned it, I was like, what in the world am I going to say about my pet, my dog? I mean, things that I could say that might be interesting to other listeners. We all love our dogs, but the only thing I could think of is if I could be the person that my dog thinks I am, I'd be doing well.
Who do you think Skye thinks you are?
I think she thinks that I'm comforting. I think she thinks I'm loving. I think she thinks and counts on me. Like I have to show up for her. And I think she realizes I'm responsible in that way. Like I show up to make sure she has her food, make sure she has her water, make sure that she has her vaccine, all those things. So I think that she knows that I've got her back. Even not knowing anyone needs to have her back. Well, and the one thing that I think that she wish I was, and sometimes she does this, but Robert's the dog walker. So he'll walk her in the morning and in the evening. But when I do these surprise ones during the day. I think she wishes I would do more of that and show up in that way a little more consistently. But yeah, that's what I hope that she knows. But she does have a lot of I think our dogs have a lot of expectations of us without, obviously they don't communicate it, but the love that they give us and being by our side. Okay, mine's going to take a jump. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Skye. I think she wants to see who was out there because she is the protector too. We just heard Phoebe and Skye's gone for a run. You want to come back up?
I would have a slightly different twist on that.
Uh-huh.
I think I would like to be the person my dog is.
Oh, interesting.
And, I've actually been really cued into that lately. You've probably seen because I posted some stuff on Facebook about this, but it struck me that like our dogs are a part of our life, but we're their whole life.
Right.
And they only have access to what we give them access to.
True.
And so I've been very interested lately in doing the daily walks in different places and letting her have different experiences and watching her absorb a new environment and sort of just luxuriate in being somewhere else. It's so inspiring. She's very present in the moment.
Right.
And all her senses are on alert. Her
It's an
nose
adventure.
twitches, her ears go up. And I wish I was that plugged in.
One of the things I like too about dogs, which we can learn so much about, is they feel the breeze. They chase the butterfly. They bake in the sun. I mean, that's inspiring. Like we only wish to be like that, right? To take the moment to do that. The other thing when I think about dogs, because they seem not to have a care in the world, they don't ruminate about yesterday. Mm-hmm. They don't worry about tomorrow. They're just getting by and waiting for their next treat and their next walk.
Exactly.
And I think there's something to learn about that as well. But you were talking a little bit this morning when we first got here about the physical effects that you feel or that dogs, generally have on people that's well documented.
Yeah, there's definitely studies that people who have dogs have lower stress.
Mm-hmm.
petting a dog releases oxytocin, which is like
Right.
the happy chemical. Um, and just generally speaking, having a dog for companionship, it just creates a less stressful environment. Consequently, people who have dogs tend to have a lower heart rate. They have better cardiovascular health. They they tend to have lower cholesterol, lower triglycerides. It's just amazing that an animal companion can have such kind of silent effects inside the body.
It's true. You and I have talked about this. I think we've both read it in different places, but anthropologists actually say that we are who we are today. Like you and I can sit and communicate. Elizabeth's able to learn all this technology and do this. We're able to take a moon to space because of dogs, because there was a time that humans always slept on edge. They were always on alert, and dogs became our protector. And when dogs became the protectors, our brains were able to evolve and to develop. They would not be what they are today without dogs. And I
Exactly.
love that. So they went from protectors to basically couch potatoes.
She's protecting right now. She's rumbling a little bit.
The other thing that I think is interesting, of course, I come from a medical background, and I remember when I worked at the medical center in Houston, Texas, doing open heart surgeries and so forth, a lot of the residents and fellows would come in, and they had just been in the research labs where there were dogs. So we have advanced in medicine because of dogs. Genetically, there is some similarities. And so testing medications and things like that as well has helped us advance in medicine. So it is interesting what dogs have brought to the table. But I'm like you, there is something about having a dog, a pet that you love and that loves you in the home. It is an ease. It gives me something to look forward to when I open the front door.
Mhm.
I think about my dog, when I'm away. I know you do because you talk about Phoebe nonstop. Phoebe, I mean, Phoebe is a part of you for sure. You love Phoebe and Phoebe loves you, and I know that you miss her. But they're family. I mean, they're truly family.
And actually, it's been really helpful having a dog as you go through big transitions in life. Like before Phoebe, as you know, we had John, who I also adored. And John was our dog when our kids went off to college. And having the continuity of a creature in the home that I could lavish love and affection on. Hey, sweetie, turn around. Really made that transition a lot easier. I think it would have been really harder to just kind of lose my kids, if you will, to college and to life and not have somebody to lavish my love on.
Right.
And I also find that now, having retired, the consistency of her needing me and needing both of us, because my husband and I sort of share responsibility for all her daily walks, and she gets a lot of them. It's just a rhythm. It sets a rhythm that is constant and comforting in a changing world.
You say that. I think it's interesting that dogs and humans are emotionally compatible. Like we need each other's needs. Just listening to you, it's so true. You brought up your children too and your first dog, which I knew, or maybe not your first dog, but I knew John many, many years ago. The other thing about dogs, the sad side of it is that they don't live as long as us. So it's horrible because we are going to miss them someday, right? But with my children, when we've had pets, watching them grieve and allowing themselves to learn that resilience from grief, I think is very helpful as well. They learn that something's not forever, that something really matters. And young, they start learning, like I said, the resilience of losing something. They also learn that they have to show up for somebody other than themselves because they get those tasks of helping with the dog as well. So there's definitely a mutual relationship where it's beneficial on both sides.
I think that piece about resilience and about experiencing grief and loss, I think that's also beneficial for us as the adults in the house.
True.
I mean, you lose a lot of people as life goes on, and losing a pet is very painful, but it does prepare you for other bigger losses.
Yep.
I think my last dogs are in heaven waiting for me. I believe that.
Well, my husband went to an afterlife convention. Sorry, Robert, I'm talking about you again. But anyway, in Florida. And that's the one piece I'm like, what'd you learn? Blah, blah, blah. The ones our dogs wait for us. They literally wait for us, Marianne, in the afterlife. That was the takeaway.
I totally believe that. To be fair, there are downsides to this little creature. And one is that, we love to travel. So it's
Right.
a constant juggle to try to figure out what to deal with her when we're not home. I just can't for the life of me board her somewhere. And not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with boarding. If you're someone who boards your dog, that's great. But I just can't do that. So I'm always scrambling to try to find somebody who could stay with her. We
Right.
do have a really good dog sitter. She'll go to her house frequently, but sometimes I just feel like she wants to be at home.
Mm-hmm.
So, the amount of emotional and mental effort that I put into taking care of this dog is kind of amazing.
Well, keeping her in her routine is
Important.
a nice way to do it. We try to do the same. Actually, person that takes care of Skye works in my husband's office. And so when we are gone, she stays at our house with Skye. And then she brings Skye to work. It's a whole routine. And I think it's great if you can do that.
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
it's actually, which leads to another thing that's really great about having dogs. Like that need to find people has made me, to find people to care for her, has really made me reach out to other dog owners.
Mhm.
And actually, just generally speaking, when you have a dog, especially if a dog like Phoebe, who has to be walked 4 times a day because we don't have a yard, I've met so many people. I mean, there's a whole community of dog owners and dog lovers out there. And when you're out and about with your dog, it's a great way to make new friends.
It's true. Talking about walking dogs, Robert does most of it, but I still do a lot of it as well. Dogs know where they belong. They know they belong with us, but they're belonging in, like mine doesn't go up to a cat. You know what I mean? Mine goes up to the dogs. There is a sense of belonging, I think, that they see as well, and they enjoy that.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I love the loyalty. There is something about having a creature that's really dedicated to you. That goes back to that good health outcomes and good mental health
Right.
outcomes.
Okay, you're such a storyteller. Somehow you end up with these dogs with so much personality. And you had a dog named John. Can you tell me one of your favorite stories about John?
Okay. Well, John was kind of a unique creature. John had been attacked as a puppy by his mother, and she had bitten through his snout. And so he developed relatively normally, although his face was a little bit askew. But I think it affected his sense of smell. And consequently, John would eat anything. He had no discretion whatsoever. He just, if he saw it, he would eat it. So one evening, my daughter was downstairs doing some homework, and she came upstairs and she said, "Mom, something's really wrong with John. It looks like there's aliens in his stomach." I'm like, "What?" And I go downstairs and I look, and sure enough, his stomach was just shifting and moving and expanding, contracting. I was like, that is weird. Like, what did he eat? A live animal? So we rush him, of course, to the emergency vet. And let me tell you, we spent a fortune on emergency veterinary care for that dog because of all his eating indiscretions. So we get to the vet, and the vet whisks him off and does some x-rays. And the vet comes back a little later and he goes, "I got good news and I've got bad news." I was like, "Okay, what's the good news?" And he said, "Well, the good news is balloons are opaque on an x-ray."
Oh, no.
I'm like, "What's the bad news?" The bad news is there are 12 of them in his intestinal tract, and they couldn't do surgery. So what was happening was his stomach gases were causing the balloons to expand.
Oh, no.
Contract. So that's
too much.
They had to put him on an antacid to keep the balloons from blowing up so it wouldn't hurt his insides. And then every time he pooped for the next few days, I had to go through the poop and see if there were balloons in it until I got all 12 balloons.
Oh my gosh, a dozen.
A dozen balloons.
Yeah,
So
that's a
that's
good
kind of gross.
Yeah, a good story though. Yeah, I know John ate a lot.
John ate a lot. She's been much better. She has the only really bad thing she ate was a piece of chewing gum, which is actually really bad for dogs. The sugarless free chewing gum.
I didn't realize that.
Well,
I've never thought about it actually.
So that required an emergency
Oh my
visit.
gosh.
But generally speaking, even though she's part beagle and is always digging in the mulch for things, especially mice, she's a really good mouser. She's been pretty good about eating indiscretion, which is great. How about you? Skye's not your first rodeo either. You
No, we have, nothing like that story wise. I would say the things that I think about in the stories is we had a Westie before, and Blue would just be so excited when she dug herself out and under our fence, like she was going to go on this big adventure. And you'd go check on her, and you could see like the tail sometimes, or you could see a hole. Her adventure was running around to the front door, just scratching it and barking to get back in. I'm like, what kind of adventure is that? You dig yourself out. You spent hours in this mud and you come to the front door just to go back in. So that was a funny thing. And then I love the fact that both of our dogs and Skye, it's sad for her, but once I start packing, or Robert, we have suitcases out, she'll get in the suitcase. She won't move out of the suitcase. When our kids call, Robert and I will put our kids on speakerphone, and it doesn't matter where Skye is. And Blue did the same thing. You would hear her run down the stairs, and she'd come right up to the phone and put her little head on the phone to listen to them. So that those are stories. They're sweet stories and kind of heartwarming stories for me.
The suitcase thing is real. She gets really upset when there's
Phoebe does the same.
Yeah. And on the adventure thing, I would say that's one other way that I think this is a great episode, right? Because going back to what I said about wanting to be like my dog, I want to have that sense of adventure, even if it's something small.
Right.
They're up and ready every day to see and do something new.
Right.
But they also know what's important and what's constant and stable. Dogs are
they're great. The unconditional love piece. Wow.
Yeah.
It's just wow. Yeah, it is.
One thing that's really important to think about if you do get a dog, if you want a dog in your home, is to make sure you get the right dog. I mean, there really is something to the breed and what their characteristics are. And my mom, before she passed away, got a Jack Russell Terrier, and that was absolutely the wrong dog for an old.
They need energy.
She had so much energy, or he had so much energy and needed so much more than she could provide. I mean, she loved the dog to pieces, but he was a challenge. And actually, one of the reasons we have Phoebe's a puggle, so she's part pug and part beagle, which means she's got really, I think for my husband and I, the perfect mix of the beagle part, which has drive, likes to smell and go outside and do things, and the pug part, which is she can be a real couch potato.
Right.
So it's really important to make sure you think about the size, the strength, the characteristics of the dog that you want to get. And that's also, again, I mentioned this earlier, but cats are also a great option. They don't need as much care, but they really do give you still a lot of love. So it's just really something to think about. Make a thoughtful choice. A lot of people end up adopting the wrong dog and then feeling like all dogs are wrong.
Right. And that's not right.
And that's not
I
correct.
agree.
It's just picking the wrong dog.
Right. I agree. We like the small dogs, but I like mid-sized dogs too. But small dog definitely fits our household for sure.
Our other dogs were bigger, and I wanted a smaller dog this time around because we're getting older.
Yes, that's true.
And I really don't want to be pulled down by a dog. So Phoebe would never do that, would you, Phoebe?
Well, I will say one thing. When we were looking at dogs, my boys did want like labs because that's what they saw most, or great hounds. One wanted a Dalmatian. And I remember Robert to this day just looking at them, and he's like, I want you to realize this. Big dogs, big poops. Little dogs, little poops. that solved it. They're like, okay, dogs with little poops. Over.
If your dog could suddenly speak for 30 seconds, what do you think they'd say about being here?
I think if Phoebe could speak, she would probably be the first thing she would say is, can I please have another Kong? It would be food related.
So Skye, I told you Robert does a lot of the walking, but when I walk Skye, which is often, I might pop her in the car and go somewhere. I may go down to the Potomac River. I do different things. So if she were to speak today, me bringing her here, she would probably look at me and say, what are you up to now?
What is one thing that your dog has taught you that's made you a better human?
For me, it'd be patience. I think my dog is patient. We have different schedules. Sometimes we have to leave her, and she's there, but she's patiently waiting at the front door. She doesn't get angry. She doesn't get mad. I do sometimes make her wait for certain things, I'm trying to teach her patience, but actually it's so innate. I would say patience.
Yeah, patience is a good one.
And unconditional love, but
I would say determination, like never give up. Because Phoebe, she's really kind of funny on a walk. She's part beagle, so she has an incredible nose. And she'll smell something, and you could just see her circling in the same area over and over. Like she knows it's there. She is going to find it. And I cannot tell you how many times she has unearthed a dead mouse.
Oh my gosh.
It's really quite extraordinary. But she's not going to give up. She knows it's there. And I think that that's a good thing. Like if you, as a person, I think if you don't give up on your goals, it's very satisfying.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marianne, I have another question for you.
Okay.
Maybe while we're here today, we can solve the great debate. Where does your dog sleep and why? Do you
Oh my
raise
goodness.
your dog? Do you let the dog sleep on the bed? Does the dog have their own bed? What you're thinking about where a dog belongs?
So in dog training and in the early puppy stage, we crated, and then we moved to a bed on the floor for Skye. And then we evolved, and she is in our bed, and we always had her at the bottom of the bed. And I will tell you, she sleeps either right here with me or with Robert. Sometimes she's more than not, though, she sleeps as a human between us now, like, which is really strange. I mean, her head in between the pillows and her body laying down. It's interesting. So I know people debate that. It's not my, I'm a nurse, so I'm always thinking about the germs that they have on their paws and all this stuff as well, which I just got to kind of block. But there is some warmth, just heart warmth, having a dog in your bed and waking up to its licks in the morning.
I feel the same way. She, Phoebe was trained in a crate when she was puppy. And actually, we originally adopted two. You know that. We adopted Phoebe and her littermate, and they did not get along. So we had to rehome the other dog, and she went to a lovely family. And she sees her sister sometimes and plays with her pretty well, but she just can't live with her. But they were both crate trained. And what I used to do is I would cover the crate to make it really dark and play classical music and put the phone on top so she could hear it. And she did pretty well with that. But as soon as she was a little bit older, she made it very clear that she expected to sleep on the bed. And it was one of those moments where there was some marital discussion because my husband really would prefer that she not sleep in the bed. And I will not be the bad guy. I am not putting her in the crate. I just am not going to do that to her. And honestly, he's a good guy. He won't put her in the crate either. So much as he says she should sleep in the crate at night, neither one of us is willing to do that. So she is sleeping on the bed.
And they'd cry at this point. I will say, if I come back as a dog, you better adopt me. You better be my owner.
I know.
I mean that,
I spoil her. One of the things I think is absolutely fascinating is the way their brains work. We got a bunch of puzzle toys for her when she was young. So, they're feeder toys and they have little contraptions where you can.
You got me into them. Yeah. For Skye. Yes.
And they're great, right?
They are.
And it's a way to kind of help them build their intellect, if you will. And so she's always had different puzzle toys with food in them. The thing is, she went from learning to manipulate the puzzle toy to learning to manipulate me. So now what she does, the minute I'm in the kitchen doing anything, whether I'm getting a glass of water or making dinner, she'll come in with one of her little Kongs or her little, it's like a Dunkin' Donuts cup that has an opening to slip treats in.
Yeah, I've seen
Or she's got like a little flying saucer thing that you put. She'll come and drop them on my feet. And if I don't respond by filling up her food toy, she'll go get another one and another one and another one. And it's like her insistence that I give her something is really quite charming.
They'll tell you what they want for sure.
Yeah.
The other thing about dogs is they teach us that love doesn't have to be complicated.
No.
It can be so simple.
Yeah.
Because that's how they
let
live.
me sleep next to you.
Yeah. It can be so simple. I've loved having our dogs here today.
Yeah, it's been great. A really fun thing to get to see. I hope for the folks that are watching, they get to see a little bit more about us by seeing our dogs.
And we are in a society, unfortunately, post-COVID of loneliness. I mean, somebody thinking about adopting a dog, I think that they should do that because there's a lot of love to give, but there's a lot of love to take as well because they just give it to you.
Right.
It's a wonderful relationship.
And the need to get out and take a dog out for exercise means you're going to get out and get exercise.
Right.
And I actually read a study somewhere that even beyond just taking a dog for a walk, just getting up multiple times a day to let a dog out, even if you're not walking the dog, if you have a yard and you let the dog out, that's exercise that you wouldn't get otherwise. Mm-hmm. So you get companionship, you get exercise, you get less stress, right? You get all these great outcomes just by opening up your heart to a pet.
And it is the social aspect. You brought that up. My husband didn't know hardly any. Well, he knew our immediate neighbors because we do things with them, but he didn't know the neighborhood. And he comes home. He has a different name all the time. And I'm like, is it the dog or is it the owner? He goes, Marianne, it's a dog. He doesn't know owner's name.
It's funny you say that because there's a couple that live in our building and they have a dog named Biggie and their names are Britt and Ben. So how hard is that? Britt, Ben, and Biggie, right? And I met them shortly after we moved in. And then I saw them a few weeks later and I was like, oh, it's Biggie. And I know your names start with B, but I can't remember them. Right. Britt and Ben. I'm like, okay, great. A few weeks later, I see them again. I'm like, oh, there's Biggie and Biggie's parents. And they're like, Britt and Ben. I'm like, it took me months to remember their names.
That is so funny.
Even though Biggie I had from like day one. We hope if you're listening or watching this episode that you'll share with us through our website your experience with dog ownership, cat ownership, what pets mean to you. We'd really love to hear from you.